Welcome.
Huh?
TD jumped on here. So you're saying it still looks like preview mode on your end?
It looks like preview mode on my end, but I mean, it would be cool for me to see the. Oh wait, No, I don't think I need to join this again, right? No.
No, it's showing us live.
All right.
Folks who are on here, I'm assuming you guys can see Dan as well as me. Somebody could just let us know if you can see both of us. Yeah, it says you are live. So I
All
think
right.
we're good to go.
In that case,
Okay.
I can't see the chat here unless I guess I can open this up on some other page. Maybe then I can see the live as
Yeah,
well.
I'm not sure. I've heard that of that happening before. But
Apparently
I'll do
there's
my
a
best to monitor the chat here for us as we go along.
wait. Apparently there. Huh. That's odd. Apparently there's a go live button for me if I minimize this. What happens if I press that?
I don't think you should because I think we're already live.
All right.
I'm not sure what'll
Sure.
happen there.
I have
And
no
I don't
idea
want to.
either.
Yeah, I don't want to go back out and start over. So we'll just
Yeah,
plug
we'll
along
use
here,
this one.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're both somewhat new to this whole live deal here. I think you've done a. I saw you did a solo last week.
Yeah, that's the only one I've done so far. I
Okay.
decided to give it a go.
Yeah, and I've got like three or four under my belt, so we're kind of learning together here.
That's cool.
So yeah, we've got some folks who've joined us here, and so we're just going to jump in and get started. First of
Hmm.
all, man, I just want to thank you for taking the time to jump on here with me. I've been following your work for a bit, and you know you posted in McElroy's Catalyst Club that you were open to do some lives, and man, I
Hmm.
think there's just a ton of overlap between your story, your work, what you write about on the adaptive human versus
Yeah.
what I'm writing about on chasing Maximus. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. For those who don't, or the listeners, like I'm Dan Ackers, and I write the Adaptive Human, like Ryan said there. Um, my background is then there's quite some time ago I started a company and built a company and also got myself into an IT career that you can all directly say that yes, this looks pretty much perfect or right on paper, but I've the further I've gotten along with that on that part, it hasn't felt like it was actually mine per se, or not something necessarily I want for me. So because of that realization, at some point, I kind of my writing has become to sitting in between the functioning and understanding. Like moments where something feels off, but you can't really explain what it is exactly. So yeah, that I try to find that kind of moments to write about in from various different angles and situations.
Gotcha.
Recognition over. God, I'm trying to give people chances to recognize what the different moments and situations for themselves and help people that way.
So like what were some examples for you that started to sort of clue you in on there's something is off here. I'm building this life that I thought I was supposed to build, right? That
Mm,
culture, society is sort of points us in that direction of here's the script that you're supposed to follow, and you start to follow that script. But it sounds to me like at some point in your life, you started to notice that something didn't quite add up. So was there a specific moment, time where you sort
I
of
think
did anything happen?
I think the first exact moment that you could point to here is when it was about the second or third, I think it was the third year of me running my company at that point. Or no, wait, second year when I was running it. And I basically came to a head where the company needed a sales oriented CEO, but then I also had training and was a software developer. And then basically making the choice between which one of these paths should I chase. And then I eventually ended up with that I feel like it's my time to step down and we should find a more sales oriented CEO for the company, because while I am able to do sales, that's not where I naturally lean. Like I have to actually do or apply myself to do sales in that sense. So I think that was the first clear moment when I noticed it, and then obviously after that I found plenty of other similar situations as well. But I think that was the first clear moment I noticed it.
And so was that a difficult decision for you? I mean, obviously, you're at the top of the organization, sort of running it, and now you're going to step aside. Was that difficult for you?
I would say, yeah, it was one of those things where I mean you have to let go of your ego, which definitely I would say didn't feel very easy. I mean, afterwards, I remember for multiple years, I felt quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, did I actually do the right choice? I mean, I remember at the time when I made the decision, it felt like the right one. Like, it felt like it was the better choice of the two for me, but then it was still having the considerations. Obviously, now in hindsight, I can also say that, well, I know for certain, or certainly, that I didn't make a bad choice, because we did manage to exit from the company pretty well a few years ago. So I would say I definitely did do a bad choice, but we can't know for sure if it would have been a better choice for me to stay CEO. But that's obviously we can't know.
Yeah, right. So did you start another business, or do you work for someone else now?
I actually still work for the same company for now.
Okay.
It's basically been kind of a drifting job, because well I need some stable income while raising a family and whatnot, and then well this writing gig that I started about 6 months ago now, I'm trying to find some kind of a path through here into a new gig or business that I want to get started with. Can't really say for sure that I know what format that will take yet, but I know Substack will be a part of it.
Yeah, gotcha. One of the things that I read about you is you may have made the comment to me, or might have been on a note. I don't remember, but it was something about the idea that some questions, are better to sit with, or they take time to unravel. That you don't have an answer for them. Am I getting that right? I don't have the
Yeah,
specific part in front of me. I just interested to hear more from you about that.
you might be referring to a note where I made like that some questions don't need an answer, they just need
Mm,
time to sit with.
mm.
And because there's some problems that can't really be solved in any easy way, or it's part of this big gray area that most of us humans live in, like because there is no clear black and white answer that you can give for that particular question. It might not be worth even trying to solve it, but rather let it sit and see what comes of it over time.
Yeah. Do you have an example of one of those questions for you?
I guess the one the one that you talked about when I was step down CEO is one,
Mm.
obviously. Uh, Others is well, it was one question that I sat with for a very long time. It was already a time when I knew that I want to leave my current job from the IT sector, but I didn't really know what I want to get into instead. It was a process that took many years. I think it was like what 3 years almost that I've been, I know I want to get out of this, but I don't know into what. So it's better to stick around and get some kind of a stable paycheck, and rather than just quitting and not knowing where I want to go. And then that's so there a question I had been sitting on for a very long time in terms of trying to figure out where I want to go next. And then at the end of last year, I kind of came up with this idea of trying to write about different realizations I've had.
Um, I really love the title of your publication, "The Adaptive Human."
Yeah, thanks.
Um, tell me about that. How'd you come up with that? What's it mean to you?
it's probably from my past. Like I like to think of myself as a person who has had to adapt to circumstances a lot throughout my life, and adaptation has, because of that, become a word or a description that I've used for what I've been doing most of my life in many ways. And then when I was thinking about the name for the publication, obviously I went through quite a lot of options, but the word adaptation or adapting came to me many times. And then, well, after bouncing around, the adaptive human sounded actually good in my opinion.
Yeah.
Once that finally clicked, like it was a process for a couple of days to figure out what I want to use.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I love it because I
Thanks.
mean it's foundational, right? It's fundamental to who we are.
Mm,
We're we are, I like to say we are adaptable AF, and the
mm,
AF could mean, what you think it might mean, and it also is sort of this adaptation framework. There are parts of us that are adapting all the time that we don't even
mm,
control, right? Like, our heart rate,
yeah,
our blood pressure, and those types of things. But then we are adapting as well. And some of those adaptations are happening at the subconscious level. And we're not even
yeah,
aware that we're sort of adapting. And so over time, we sort of drift into these adaptations. And then we have a moment in life where we wake up and maybe we don't quite recognize where we're at, or we start to feel this tension of, it doesn't feel like I thought it was going to feel. For me, it was, I had this epiphany on a Sunday morning where I kind of had this realization. I was working a corporate job. We had moved four times around the country.
mm,
Um, I had a goal I was marching towards, and then one day I sort of had this realization that I cared more about disappointing my wife. I mean, I cared more about disappointing my boss than I did about disappointing my wife, and
mm,
that was like a 2x4 moment that really
yeah,
sort of um, shook my world in a way that forced me to stop and sort of analyze, well, how did this happen? Like, if my wife and my family matter, and they do matter,
yeah,
my actions don't show that. And
yeah,
that was the first time I saw this gap between who I had become through these micro adaptations, if you will,
yeah,
uh, compared to the person that I wanted to be. And
yeah,
so the thing that I love about the publication name is, you adapt your way into who you are right now, whether
yeah.
you whether you want to admit that or not. Well, the good news is if you adapted your way into it, then you can adapt your way out of it,
That's true. Yes.
right? But
Yeah.
it's not easy work, right? It's not easy work.
No, I mean the step one obviously is to realize what you want to go towards. I usually don't like to think that we have any end goal that we're aiming for. More like we have a direction that we're going towards.
Mm, yeah.
And I have no idea what my end goal will be, but I only know that I have a direction of where I want to go, and I keep chasing that direction.
Yeah. Well, I love that too, man, because I live in the United States. I
Yeah,
live sort of in the Midwest, so the middle of the country. And I like to use this analogy as I'm headed west. I'm not sure quite where I'm going to end up.
yeah,
I might end up in Los Angeles. I could end up in, Portland, Oregon, but I'm headed
yeah,
west. And as the road blocks, come into view, we'll navigate
mm,
around them and we'll end up somewhere where we're supposed to end up. But that's a difficult challenge, right? I mean, you come from the business world and you've started a business and ran
mm,
a business, and so you understand what that's like. But for me, part of this adaptation is the pressure that we get from society, which tells us that there is some place that we could arrive at that's going to suddenly make us feel this feeling that we're chasing, right? This completeness,
that
this wholeness, um, this arrival of the next achievement, the next accomplishment, the next thing. Um, yeah, what are
what
your
I'm
thoughts on that?
what you're talking about right now makes me think about when I was reading about a long. This was from a history book, I think, where some religious leaders kept talking about, they need to have some kind of a task for their people so that the people will live good lives that will serve the church and serve the society. If you think about the whole like this, or that basically the process, because that's history, and we know obviously that the different churches and societies want their people to be productive members of society. And therefore, if I then try to apply this same logic or principle to nowadays society, there is obviously that the society or many governments, they do obviously want their people to be, well, good citizens, or tax-paying citizens is probably the correct word. They want their taxes. That's but see, it's a little bit simplifying it, but I still do think that the society then wants to give people an easy way to live, or an easy way to live correctly, so that people have something to chase easily. And obviously, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. Like, if you find that as a good, or if you find yourself having some kind of like, have your house, 2 kids, and a dog, if that's the future you want, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, and I think what the path the society is suggesting is a good one. There's nothing, but then there's also some of us that perhaps want something a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think, at least where I'm from, right, the education system is designed to push you into the world, to get a job, to compare yourself to others, to compete with others, to consume as much as you possibly can consume, to keep the machine running,
Yeah,
but nowhere in there do they teach you how to be human.
that's very true.
And so what happens when you wake up at some point in your life and you've built the life that society told you to build, and it's not the life that you expected, right? Like, I've seen you say, the outer world looks great, right? So on paper, my life looks perfect, but the insides don't match with the outside. Like, so to me, that's the human part that we have to learn, right? How do we then make these adjustments and begin to consciously adapt, right? So to use the adaptive human, if adaptation is a superpower, which I believe that it is, then how do we use that to our advantage?
Well,
to build the life that we want?
I mean, obviously, this is, again, everyone's own direction or choices are their own, or what the goal they want is their own. I can't obviously say what the correct choice is for other people, but I think it's trying to, because what you're trying to describe is like quite a big problem, saying what should be my end goal instead of this current end goal that I'm having at, and that is quite many decisions that you would have to do then at once. So it might be easier even to try and break it down to more manageable chunks and doing small adjustments in the correct direction. Like, you have an idea of, perhaps you have an idyllic choice or idyllic life that you're dreaming of, that, hey, I want that. Then whenever there's a new decision coming up where you can choose something, then, well, make the choice that aligns with the path you want to live on, and eventually all these choices will add up to become whatever it is that you want.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I like to do, because you're right, I mean, it's hard, especially, depending on where you are in your life, it's hard to know when you're, in your early 20s, like, what it is exactly that you want to do with your life, right? I mean, you've got to experience some things to know whether these fit or whether they don't. But one of the exercises that I absolutely love to do, man, is to fast forward to the end. Like, if someone were preparing your eulogy today, what would you want them to say about you? And unfortunately, I've been to enough funerals to know that they don't talk about how much you made, or how big your house was, or how many followers you had on social media, right? They talk about talk about how you made people feel,
Yeah.
right? And what kind of person you were. And to me, I think that's where this gap starts to as we're chasing after the things that we are told we're supposed to chase after, as we chase after the things that we feel pressure to chase after, these status symbols, these things that make they signal to other people that we're making it, that we're accomplished, that we matter.
Yeah.
We sort of, if we're not careful, we adapt our way into missing out on what matters. And
Yeah.
if you could somehow get that on paper of this is how I want to live my life, this is what I want to be known for, this is what I want people to be able to say about me at the end of the day. And then comparing that as often as you need to how you're actually showing up in your life,
I
to
mean,
to really do a gap analysis, if to use a business term, right? You're doing a gap analysis on yourself between how I intend to be living and how I'm actually living. To me, that's been a very useful exercise to sort of show me how I've lost my way. So I don't have one of those moments where I wake up again and realize my wife and family have taken a back seat to what I'm trying to do. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
What you're describing is it's kind of similar as well to what I'm talking about with a direction. Like you have a direction where you want to go, and because you can easily have that if you have a prepared eulogy for yourself, and you want people to be able to tell that to at your funeral, then I mean it can work as a north star for you to follow whenever you are making decisions.
Yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
that's a in that sense, I think it's basically the same thing described different ways.
Yeah. So do you have a process that you sort of recommend people to walk through, or a process that you've gone through to really um, a make sure that you are directionally accurate in where you're headed, and how do you how do you maintain that, right? How do you know if you're on track, if you're drifting off, and what are those recalibration sort of points look like for you?
I think it's pretty much just trying to. It's not something that can be easily. I don't do like every month sitting down and seeing am I going in the right direction. It's more I go quite a lot by feeling like whenever I do feel like hey now something feels off, I tend to trust that feeling. I also like I usually keep saying that there's this little voice in the back of my head that or my subconscious that's telling me something, and whenever it is I hear it say something, I tend to trust it that okay there's something I should listen to right now, and then go that way because most of my major decisions in my life I can attribute to that it started with me hearing that little guy in the back of my head saying something, and then I just followed that voice.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. Um, any examples you care to share? I mean, obviously you've shared the one with the CEO moment and having that voice, but
uh
have there been any recently?
Recently I think the most recent one is the when I decided to give the most recent one I remember that led to a bigger decision was when I chose to like I had met my wife, but then at the time I was like on the edge that or on the verge that do I want to keep dating her or look for someone else, and then I made a decision that yeah I'll give a real shot with my current the girlfriend at the time and now wife. So I guess that was the most recent one when I decided to follow the nudge from the back of my head to that. Yeah, I should probably hang out with her more. And well, we're married now and 3 kids, so I suppose it was a good choice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Um, so this whole idea that you have this voice in your head, right?
hmm
Um, Sort of guiding you along. Um, I think all of us do to some
yeah,
degree, and how we listen to it, how it speaks to us, is different for each individual. I know people who have a voice in their head that's not very kind. That's
yeah,
it's like a tyrant telling them how bad they suck, and every time they make a mistake, sort of beating themselves up about it. Um, but to me, man, there's really three. We can think, which for me is my downfall. Right, I get lost in thinking. I get identified with my thoughts,
Mm,
and it's hard for me. It was very hard for me to start a mindfulness practice, a meditation practice, because I just did not know how to quiet my mind or to sit with my thoughts and observe, how they were coming and going. I was just kind of, I would chase whatever thought popped into my head, and I get lost in that, and then obviously not be fully present with things that were going on around me. But we can think, we can feel, and then we can
yeah,
know. And there was something that you just said in there, that you listen to your feelings, and you listen to this sort of voice in your head that's
yeah.
that's that's guiding you along. Would you say that's intuition?
It could be. It could be.
Gotcha.
I'm not.
Okay.
It's like the intuition is such a vague description of something as well that it's difficult to say for sure if this is the intuition or not. I mean, this description fits, but I'm not certain if it still is that or something else.
Yep, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you get sort of into those situations. It's really hard to put language to some
Yeah.
of those things that you feel, and some of the things that you think through. It's like, how do you describe love? It's kind of
Mm.
hard to do that. It's kind of hard to describe intuition as well. So, um, yeah, man, that's interesting. So, what's your biggest challenge right now?
I mean, I guess it's the daily life of just managing the taking care of the kids, the family, taking care of the house, trying to get the enough work done every day, both on Substack and my own job, that everybody stays happy. So I
And that's
mean,
working
just
out for you?
juggling. Yeah, so far at least I've been able to uh, juggle all the responsibilities well enough, I think. It's not it's a rocky road, but I hope at least I'll come out the other end in a somewhat of a good state at least.
Yeah. So do you have sort of a process in your mind that you're going to work through to sort of make the decisions on I know you directionally you want to leave the job that you're in.
Mm, yeah.
I'm assuming you want to kind of do your own thing, or are you thinking like solopreneurship? Or are you thinking that it's some kind of writing, coaching, teaching?
Those are all options um, that could be explored. I don't think it's whatever it is going to be. It's going to be just one thing. Like because my current job as a software developer, I got bored when it was day in day out of just the same, more or less the same, and therefore I do want variety in what I do. So some kind of a solopreneur probably is the end result, but then there's a lot of details that it's difficult to write write in right now at what they're like what they're going to become.
Gotcha. So is the roadblock for you right now just income? Like figuring out how to replace the income that you have coming in from your job?
Well, I mean that's one of the roadblocks, sure.
Yeah, just trying to think through, like, um, yeah, making that transition,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean,
So I go ahead.
yeah, like I have made rough plans and trajectories in terms of what I'm guesstimating how long it's going to take for me to successfully manage this transition. And well, my current idea is that it's roughly in summer 27 is when I'm going to be able to make the transition fully. If
Okay.
that, I mean, I'm uncertain if that's going to actually happen or not. I don't know, but it's roughly what I've been mapping out. That's probably going to how long it's going to take for me to get this end sorted enough that it's viable to switch. Reality will show if it's correct or not.
Yes, it will. It has a way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, are there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about? Any questions that I could ask that I haven't asked?
Um, One thing that I actually have been thinking about lately, and when I was going through some of your material before this meeting, I started to think that are we perhaps sometimes too quick to treat discomfort as evidence that something needs to change? Because you talk about the gap that we build between the life we live or the life we built and then the gap to the life we crave or the life we want in the future. Um, I think like you notice the gap and then well you describe of how like trying to how to close it or how to close that gap between these two. So sometimes I do wonder if you create that gap, depending a bit on the situation, obviously, but sometimes I wonder if just trying to close that gap is that perhaps too simple of a way to think about it. So if you look back at your own life, were there any gaps that actually needed to exist for us for a while before they could be resolved for you? And if so, what would have been lost if you tried to close them too quickly?
Well, that's a loaded question. The reality is it is extremely simple concept to think through, but
Hmm.
simple is not easy, right? Simple does
Hmm.
not equal easy. So when I talk about the gap, there really are a few things, but the big one is intentions versus actions. So when you think about how you judge yourself, now maybe this doesn't apply to you, but for me, I judge myself based on my intentions. I know what my intentions are, but everyone else judges me based on my actions.
Hmm.
And so if my intention is to be a, calm, cool, collected, nice, um, caring man, and I
Hmm.
am screaming and cussing while I'm driving down the road, that's a pretty big disconnect, right? And
Yeah.
that was one of the big gaps for me was I had this road rage that uh, existed for most of my life. My dad has it. I just thought that's who I was, and I finally got to the bottom of what was driving that. But the reality is, man, that there's another gap that exists that to me is a big one as well, and that's the gap between knowing and
Hmm.
doing, which is a close alignment to intentions and actions. But
Yeah.
I'm a learner. I love to learn, and so I can consume podcasts, books, YouTube videos, shorts. Like I can just consume, and learn a lot of useful information, and struggle to put that into place in my life. And so there are gaps that exist for me today that
Mm.
at 52 years old have existed for as long as I can remember, and I still haven't been able to close them. And I'm not sure that I ever will. Um, because I think this is there's no point that I can see in my future that says when I arrive there, I'm done. The work is done. I've made it. Um, I'm constantly growing. I'm constantly learning new things, experiencing new things, uncovering new blind spots that I have, finding new things that I'm interested in, and um, you know, to me, it's just this ongoing process of we're slowly adapting.
Mm.
Some of those adaptations are unconscious, and so we drift. And so the whole idea is we will drift. We must notice that we've drifted and then return. Well, return to what?
Mm.
Return to the present moment, to reality as it's unfolding right now, and check in. Am I still living aligned with the purpose, with the intentions, with the knowledge that I have today?
Mm.
Am I still on the right path? Am I headed in the right direction? What areas of
Mm.
my life have I lost my way? So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think it's very individual. Each individual person needs to get extremely clear on what matters to them, right?
That's true. Yes.
Uh, and once you know what matters to you, then having some process of staying in touch with how you are living your life, how you're showing up, how your behavior, how does your behavior line up with that expectation, with
Mm.
that intention of yourself? And where those gaps exist, to me, that's where we start to run into these areas where we have this feeling, this ache that something is wrong. We feel like we've lost our purpose, we've lost meaning, um, anxiety, depression. Like
Mm.
all of these things are signs and symptoms of a gap in your life somewhere that exists that
Yeah.
you really should, in my opinion, those those are areas where the thread needs to be pulled, and you really need to get as deep as you need to get into that situation of your life or that area of your life to figure out what is causing that.
Mm.
Our bodies and minds know what to do if we allow them to do it, but I think our minds and our I have this framework, man. I call it it's BS, and what that means is it's belief systems, blind spots, and the bullshit stories that you tell yourself.
Mm.
And for me, my belief for most of my life was that I'm not enough, that it wasn't safe to be me. So I adapted. I learned how to be who I needed to be to find acceptance. Well, it turns out that was a bullshit story that lived in my blind spot. And so a bunch of my work has been really trying to unravel how I got, how I became the person that I became, and what do I need to do uh, to re to remind myself, basically. So I don't know if I answered your question, um, but are there gaps that need to remain open? I think it's very individual, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that there are some gaps that you won't ever close.
Okay. That's a fair thought. Um, I do want to say one thing though. Never say never, because you never know what might happen in the future.
100%. Yes, that's a very good point. Yeah.
So then one more follow-up actually to what you how would you say that you know the difference between a gap that cannot be solved and then a gap that needs immediate attention?
Well, again, I think this is very individual.
Hmm.
Um, how much pain is it creating in your life? How much discomfort is showing up in your life right now, right? So,
Mm.
one of my gaps was I wanted to be in shape, you know. But if you watched what I put in my mouth, like I don't know about you, but no one has fed me in a very long time. Like the only person putting food in my mouth is me.
Hmm.
And the number of times I would catch myself in the pantry with my hand in a bag of chips and I wasn't even hungry,
Yeah.
like what's driving that behavior? So for me, it was I'm not taking care of myself. I'm very much out of shape. I need to figure this out. That was a pretty high drive for me to begin working on closing that gap. Um, but yeah, for I don't know, man. For me, it's am I am I able to find peace and joy, and am I able to sit with myself with no distractions, and go sit on my porch and stare at the trees and not be agitated to the point where I have to get up and distract myself. So if I can get to this place in my life where I feel like I've arrived now, where I can just sit with myself and my own thoughts and not feel agitated and aggravated um, by something that's uncomfortable that I don't want to face, um, I feel like I'm getting closer. But if there are things that just I can't let go of, that I can't shake, that are either causing me pain, causing me some type of frustration or angst or anxiety, then yeah, to me, I think that's where people need to lean in and focus their time and attention. Your life
Mm.
will tell you the areas where the gaps exist if you choose to tune in. I think every person needs to face reality as it is, not as they want it to be, not as they hoped it would be. but how is it really? And that's the ability to sit with the discomfort and figure out where it's coming from. Does that make sense?
Hmm. It does, I think, yeah, because like it's a very it pretty much sounds very similar to my so-called process, if you will, and something I would say I'd do something similar as well. You know, just seeing what if there is something that's griping or being annoying for you, and obviously it's something that needs to be looked at. But then knowing whether you need to do something about it or if it's just something you need to sit with. I mean, start with sitting with it, and if your mind doesn't come up with any good answer, then just sit with it and see what happens. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, and I think that's where, using those around you to help,
mm,
once you get to that place, if you can't figure it out, I mean, one of the best ways to do it I've found is to ask someone else who knows you really well, you know. Um, and my wife has a lot of advice on things I need to fix. If I have the courage to ask, right? Um, but the other area I think that people miss is what I found is extreme emotions.
mm, yeah,
Where I got very emotionally charged. So road rage would be a big one.
yeah,
That should have been obvious to me that something was wrong. And it's silly to say out loud. And, as a man, you're sort of told to toughen up and don't cry, rub some dirt on it, don't be a wimp, don't be a mama's boy, all that kind of
yeah,
stuff, right? So
yeah,
for me, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder, and I didn't ever want to show people that I was weak, right?
yeah.
And some of that goes back to being bullied as a kid. But man, it's probably 4 years ago. I had an incident where I, we had we were driving. Somebody pulled in front of me, and I lost my mind, and it really made my wife and kids uncomfortable,
Mm,
and it caused a pretty big argument with my wife. And so at that point, I had done enough work to really start to pull on that thread. And what I discovered was the feeling that I had was the same feeling I had when I got bullied.
mm,
That somebody's trying to punk me, somebody's trying to get ahead of me or cut me off, or
yeah,
I felt slighted. And man, I would just fly into a rage that was very uncharacteristically me. And so that was a big breakthrough for me to say, okay, I have become so good at ignoring my feelings because it didn't
yeah,
feel safe to express them that that's my cue for areas of my life that I need to tune into. What is causing me to get so emotionally charged? And what I found was the majority of them are just protection mechanisms, right? I'm protecting this
yeah.
part of me that doesn't feel enough. And does that gap need to be closed? I mean, I can't answer that for anyone else. I can just, for me, I'm passionate about wanting to help people close their gaps.
Mm,
Um, I'm not I'm not concerned with convincing you that you have a gap that needs to be closed, right? If you don't think you have a problem, then you don't have a
I
problem.
mean, yeah, pretty much,
Right? I mean,
pretty
you may
much.
have problems, but at some point, we have these moments, man, that interrupt our lives, that interrupt the pattern, right? This subconscious autopilot, which my opinion is we adapt our way into that. And as
Mm,
we adapt our way into it, we repeat things, they become habituated. Habituation becomes automaticity. Automaticity is unconscious, right?
yeah,
And as that happens, we get so narrowed in on our perspective,
mm,
and we lose sight of so much possibility because
yep,
our minds filter it out. And so we miss opportunities, we miss possibilities, we miss conversations, we miss the life that's unfolding right in front of us because we're lost in thought, thinking
yeah,
about what happened in the past or worried about what's happening in the future. And so, a big part of the work for me is expanding your perspective, right? Realizing that your perspective is one of 8 billion perspectives on this planet, and honoring that. Like everybody has the right to their own perspective. And
Yeah.
for those who are feeling the the ache, as I call it, right? This felt sense that something is missing from my life. Um, the overarching theme for me, if I were to put what I've learned in one sentence, it's I spent most of my life chasing this this feeling that something was missing, and I was chasing it in all the wrong things, all the things outside of me: job,
Yeah.
title, money, cars, house, relationships, all that stuff. At the end of the day, what I was really chasing was acceptance, but that acceptance can only come from me.
That's actually a very powerful realization.
Yeah. Well,
I'm really glad you've come up with that, or gotten to
well,
it.
I'm 52 years old, and that's pretty new. So I'm hard-headed, man. I like to say it takes. I have wake up. I've had a lot of wake up calls in my life, and I like to call
Yeah.
them 2x4 moments because I'm so hard-headed. It takes a 2x4 to the side of my head to get my attention sometimes. But
I think
and we have a comment here. Our raw material says losing the perspective of possibility. Such a great concept. Yeah.
Hmm.
What's your thoughts on that? On narrowing our perspective, our perception of reality down to something so narrow that we miss everything else.
this is actually one of those quite. I mean, it's from the past few years actually. I have a weakness that's stemming from my childhood as well. That I tend to, when it comes to an emotional conflict, or if any way I have emotions are involved into that, I have a tendency to back off on and even shrink myself down way too fast, or in a situation when I shouldn't necessarily. But I do realize, I know already that it comes from my childhood. There's plenty of examples when I was pretty much forced into that, unfortunately. But so I've been working on trying to make myself not shrink, or not let that shrinking happen so easily whenever that conflict comes up. But it's very difficult because I also know, I recognized when you described that you're basically recognized myself, and when I notice myself shrinking like that, I mean, I lose sight of most of what's happening around me and just get into my head and pretty much I mean, sometimes I feel fear, sometimes I feel just numb. I'm not that my mind is protecting me from some emotions that are happening around me, but I just can't take for whatever reason. So yeah, that's where my mind went when you talked about it, like that my mind, I do lose sight of what's happening around me at that point, and I know also that what I say or do at that particular moment usually isn't what I would normally say or do.
And does that come out as sort of anger, rage, um, or does that come off as just a complete disconnection, like
Depending a
silent
bit on the
treatment, that
moment.
kind?
Depends a bit on the moment. It's usually the most recent few times it's come out as some kind of an anger that I don't want to direct at anything particular, and I know that if we had a conflict with my wife, that I chose to run away instead of letting it go out at
Mm,
her, because I don't feel like I want that on her. So I
yeah.
feel like, I
Well,
mean, even though I also logically know that running away from the conflict is bad, but I don't want to escalate it with letting my anger loose.
yeah.
So
Well,
it's kind of like a bad
that's
and a very
powerful,
bad
man.
situation.
Well, yes and no. So I would encourage you to really spend some time with that, right? So I'm married.
Hmm.
I have 5 kids. My wife and I have been together for the 29 years this year, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but I will tell you this, and no one tells you this, but no one will trigger you more than your wife and your kids.
Well, yeah.
Um, and it's, I have kids ranging from 29 to 11.
Yeah.
And so we've got 3 in their 20s and one teenager, and then my 11-year-old. And even though I'm aware of this, my boys still trigger me. My wife still triggers me, but I'm getting a lot better at it. But yeah, man, I can relate to what you're saying because
Mm.
for me, I dissociate when I get overwhelmed, and that feeling
Yeah.
of numbness usually is followed by or is preceded by some tirade where I lose my cool and I say something that I'm definitely going to regret, and then I just kind of lose connection with myself, and I it's the weirdest thing, but the only way I can describe it is I don't feel anything.
Mm.
And I've gotten to the point now where I've learned to not make any decisions when I'm feeling that way,
Yeah.
because it's not true. That's just my body's way of protecting me from the emotions that I haven't learned to feel yet.
Yeah.
Um, so, man, I hope that you have a process for catching. And it sounds like you're getting good at catching that, but also, there's something there causing it, and
Mm.
being able to reconnect with yourself to get calm down, and then to go have that difficult conversation with your wife when it's not emotionally charged.
I
Um,
mean, I have a process
if you
of
if
getting myself out of it. It's not an instant process. It takes some time, depending a bit on how heavy that charge is. It can range from anywhere between like 30 minutes to a few hours. But it
Yeah,
does.
well, it's taken
It's
me days sometimes to get back.
yeah. Well, I guess I can. I usually haven't had that long. Like I've been able to pass my or get over it faster, and you know, like a couple of hours is usually the longest I usually have that.
Yeah.
So I guess I can let go a little bit faster in this case than you, but that doesn't mean that my way is better in any sense. Like it's just different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty hard-headed. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, and these things are hard to change, right? So if,
Mm.
the adaptive human, right, to sum that up from my perspective is
Yeah.
that we will never stop adapting. And our body's drive to consume energy is to automate as much as it can possibly automate. And this whole saying of neurons that fire together wire together. And the more you do something, the faster that connection gets and the more hardwired it becomes. And, for me, some of these things I've been doing for 45, 50 years, right? As long as I can remember. So to those are harder to change because now you're trying to change a 12-lane super highway with a dirt path. So um, those are very hard to do, man. It just takes a lot of repetition and a lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure, man. I think I just heard some kids there, and we're
Yeah. My
approaching an
daughter
hour.
actually came
So
and yeah, my daughter just got here and she was trying to wondering what I'm doing here, but
gotcha. Yeah. So, man, we're to a point. If you want to wrap this up, we can go ahead and
yeah.
wrap this up. I don't know if there's
Yeah,
any
I
other.
guess we can start wrapping this up. I guess I need to talk to her a little bit here.
Yeah. Well, looks like we have one other comment here.
Yeah.
Mary Beth says, "Great convo. Definitely sharing this with my hubs. He will appreciate this." So awesome. I'm glad.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm glad that was helpful. Hopefully, her husband enjoys it.
Yeah.
Well, man, is there anything you want to say in closing?
I think we've covered pretty much all the topics I was thinking about here, like so far already. Just obviously there were a few more questions we could have gone into, but I feel like it's enough at least for this point.
Okay. All right, man. Well, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Apparently there came a daughter removal service here.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. They don't know any better, right?
Yeah, I know. Young kids are still are the best, but they don't really realize always what's going on.
Yeah, right. Well, look, man, I've enjoyed talking to you very much.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to continuing to follow your work.
Yeah.
I would say to anybody on here who's not subscribed, to the Adaptive Human, they go check it out. And obviously, if they found any value in this, if you're not following Chasing Maximus, and I know that would I would appreciate that as well. But yeah, thank you for everyone who joined in and stuck around. And um, I look forward to maybe doing this again with you sometime. We can get into
Yeah,
maybe some deeper discussions around some certain topics.
yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to doing this again. I mean, this was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed this conversation too a lot. And
Awesome, man.
trying to let's see if we can do this again someday.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay, man. Well, you
yeah,
have a good day. Get with those
yeah. You
kids.
too. I will.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
You
Mhm.
too. See ya.